Yeah. Yeah. Straight up. Ice.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Depression Vacation Podcast. I'm Hal.
Are we actually going?
Yeah.
I'm Shannon.
And I'm Ryan again.
Yeah. Shannon is better than last week. Like, we don't have to wheel her around in a wheelchair. Actually, she wheeled herself in that wheelchair. I just want to point out.
Yeah.
Which you never see anymore outside of the Burger King Kids Club, so... So shout out to Shannon. Although you're better this week. You're in a walking boot.
Yes. Shout out to OIP.
Yeah.
And this is official endorsement for... No, just kidding.
If they're in your network, because that's how things work in this country.
No, that's true. But they were really great and made everything
They actually
make
helped
sense.
you.
Yeah. Wow. It was weird. It was like you go to a doctor's office and you expect to be helped and they just did it.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was wild.
Shannon has an extra bone.
I have an accessory bone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Auxiliary bone.
Now Shannon and I have the same amount of bones.
Let's call it the IKEA bone because it's left over and you don't need it. We broke Shannon. This is now the Hal and Ryan podcast.
Welcome to Video Games with Hal and Ryan.
Yeah, video game ASMR with
Video
Hal.
game. I love this bit. I do.
Do you?
Yeah. And now that apparently I'm just part of this podcast.
Yeah, you're probably the most frequent guest at this point.
Yeah.
Do you feel special?
I do feel special. I feel a certain kind of way.
Oh.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't think you're allowed to feel that in public.
Oh.
You're definitely the most, cause, and you have the most solo guest episodes now, because this is 4 for you, and then the one you shared with Lauren that one time, so
Yeah.
where we did couples ASMR. I will say, I was so moved / I remembered how much we interrupted you about doing ASMR last week. I did subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Oh, God. Why?
Because you asked me to.
Oh.
You did.
Oh, God. Why?
He doesn't remember that he asked you because he doesn't listen to the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or maybe the ASMR is just so good.
It was so fucking good.
Or no, I guess it would be worse if it caused you to forget things.
No, because it makes you fall asleep and then,
What makes you fall asleep? Is that what it does to other people?
yeah, generally.
I thought ASMR was supposed to be like unlocking. It is a bit of hypnosis, and
It's an aspect of it.
my ex-girlfriend had gone through. Unless I'm thinking of something completely different, she was going through ASMR therapy, which was unlocking like repressed memories that link to things. Maybe it's a different thing I'm thinking of.
Well, it's such a broad genre that to put it into one kind of like, this is just for relaxing you to sleep is just not really giving it the credit
Yeah.
it deserves. Because like, this is weird. I'll just like turn it on during the day and just have it as background noise
Yeah.
and to put me to sleep.
I've strangely, like, if that's what ASMR is, strangely enough, a lot of my vid jams have been ASMR related. Like, the horror one was definitely a lot of, like, therapy talk. And because I showed the one that we did last weekend to a friend of mine who watches all of mine, and he was like, gee, man, you incorporate therapy a lot into your movies. And I'm like,
I was thinking that too. Honestly, like when we were doing it, I was like, "This feels oddly familiar." No, but it was watching the final project. I was like, "Oh, this is really cool."
And you didn't even see the big one that made him think of that, because we weren't doing movies together at this point, was one I did in 2019 with Suji and Jasmine and Gary, actually. And this was actually maybe my favorite vid jam I ever did. And I'm usually not disappointed when I don't win awards, but this particular one I really thought was like original, was scary, had some of the best photography I'd ever done in it, and it won absolutely 0. And I got super depressed about that, because the plot of the movie was Jasmine was a woman who had been kidnapped and escaped her kidnapper and was going through trance therapy, because every time she would think of her kidnapper, all she could see is this man in a mask that was tormenting her, which, strangely enough, was the same mask as the Barnaby mask.
Barnaby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so my neighbor, I was house sitting for him, and he owns a huge mansion. So we just like basically shot all of these terrifying scenarios where Gary would pop out in this mask and scare Jasmine, and Suji was like guiding her through ASMR type of like therapy to get through there. And yeah, it was That was one of my favorite vid jams that went absolutely nowhere.
Nice.
I think our last one was a pretty quality production.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Unfortunately, there were only 6 movies that got submitted. There was a 7th team that did not finish and didn't submit anything. I don't know who they were, but they just didn't do anything. But all of them are pretty interesting. I have not watched them in their entireties. I've just seen enough to pull clips and do a trailer because I want to be surprised. But they all look like they're pretty interesting.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Unfortunately, we're going to be out of town for the screening, but
Yeah.
everyone else should go.
We're going to be hella out of town.
Well,
We're gonna be so out of town.
I remember in our group chat, everybody, because I was unpleasantly surprised that it's not next weekend, but the weekend after, June 25th. I had to swap work shifts to be able to make it there, so I'll be off on Sunday, even though I have to work Saturday. And Ryan is going to be coming back, other Ryan. Yeah. But like that was our whole group chat was like, oh man, we didn't think it was going to be 3 weeks from now, so nobody's available to see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that I think about it, it's like, oh, right, Father's Day and all that stuff going on. It's a holiday weekend.
No, Father's Day is actually the previous weekend.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying is like that might be why they didn't do it 2 weeks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because now Juneteenth is a holiday, so that's a holiday weekend, everybody.
Yeah, actually, a big thing too that
Shout out to Abraham Lincoln.
a shout out
Thanks,
to
Obama.
Oh my God.
actually
Bring it back.
Actually, if we want to be specific, wasn't it under Trump that Juneteenth became I mean, he had nothing to do with it being a national holiday, but it was technically that administration.
I don't remember. I was just saying shout out to Abe for freeing the slaves. Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln was dead by the time Juneteenth had occurred.
Oh.
Because
I take it back then.
I mean, it was still his handiwork, but like Abraham Lincoln was killed like less than a week after Appomattox. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was killed pretty quick.
Yeah, like basically as soon as the Civil War ended, he got killed by the most famous actor in America's brother. And yeah, Juneteenth didn't happen until a few months later.
Was he that famous? John Wilkes Booth?
Not John Wilkes Booth. His brother was the most famous actor in the country, and more people could actually positively identify him than they could Abraham Lincoln at the time.
Oh, wow.
So he was like, when I read the article about this, George Clooney was still the king of Hollywood. And they're like, he was like the George Clooney of his time. Because weirdly enough, actors were like, because they did traveling tours back then, they were some of the most recognizable faces, even though film hadn't been invented yet.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or at least moving picture film. Because they said that about, I don't know how many of you have seen the cinematic masterpiece, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
I have not.
Oh, it's like one of the best movies ever. And one of the most beautifully shot movies ever. But the story the guy took, like after he assassinated Jesse James, he became an actor in traveling shows where he would replay the assassination of Jesse James. And again, he was so popular during the 80s that more people could correctly identify who Robert Ford was than the president of the United States at the time.
Huh. The more you know.
Yeah, those must have been weird times.
I think the most recognizable leader of the U.S. was Emperor Norton.
What?
Oh my God. Almost nobody knows about this. He was a Jeopardy answer a couple of weeks ago. And my mom, because I watched Jeopardy with my mom, was like, who the hell is Emperor Norton? I'm like, oh, you mean Joshua Norton the First, the emperor of...
Oh, right.
Since Ryan brought this up, I'll let Ryan tell the story about Emperor Norton.
Oh, God. So I don't know a ton about him, but he was basically the self-proclaimed crazy man on the streets who just stood on a box and said, I am the Emperor of America. And everyone was like, oh, cool.
Now, did you also learn about him from the Sandman comic about him?
No, Sam O'Nella.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you tell more about Sam O'Nella.
All right.
Are you familiar, Hal?
No, is this a YouTube channel?
Yes, it is. Sam O'Nella is a one of those like fun history lesson kind of guys, and he'll like have these crude drawings.
Joshua Norton has a photograph of him, at least in his emperor's outfit, I think, right?
I do not know.
Yeah, because I think I looked him up on Wikipedia at one point over the last couple of years.
My hope was that Shannon would continue to not remember who this was, and we could just like make up facts about him. Like, no, this is real. This is the Emperor of America, Shannon.
I don't think it's something that you could make up, and it would be any like
less ridiculous.
Yeah, because he was a Jewish businessman in San Francisco who had like lost his whole fleet of ships in a storm. And like the way the Sandman comic is, because I get everything from pop culture, is situated is that Dream and Despair have a contest between the two of them, where they take this man, Joshua Norton, who's just lost everything, and see if he'll succumb to despair and just like kill himself, or if Dream can give him enough direction that he'll want to live the rest of his life. And so Dream gives him inspiration, and he's inspired to declare himself the emperor of the United States.
I remember the comic now. See,
Yeah.
I first remembered the Salmonella episode, and then as you started describing it, I was like, right, the Sandman comic, I forgot.
Yeah, and it's very, very touching. And because I remember at the end of the comic, when Death is taking Joshua away, she's like, I've met 100 different or thousands of different kings and emperors in my time, and I think I liked you the best. Because he was just a sweet, crazy old man who didn't do any harm to anybody during his reign, if you could call it that.
Yeah. So on a related note, Jesus of Nazareth, his Aramaic name was a lot closer to Yeshua, which
I've heard this a few times. Yeah.
which translates better to Joshua, actually. And so since they didn't really have surnames, he would have been Joshua, son of Joseph, which makes Jesus Christ Jojo.
Oh my God.
Or maybe Juju.
Yeah, and it would have been a very bizarre adventure, I imagine.
Somebody should do the. I did read I read a review that what was this? The CW is rebranding into a lot more Christian content these days.
What?
Yeah, because which is
So
quite
I'm sorry,
a sharp.
You mean the
Yes.
network that gave us Supernatural and
Riverdale.
the Vampire Diaries
Yes.
is going for more Christian content.
Yeah, they're pivoting. In fact, I read a long article on the AV Club because they got the rights to the crowdfunded Jesus TV show that had been going on, and the AV Club said that usually with these Christian sort of things, production values are low and everything is super preachy. But like this particular series, they say is actually like an AV Club has like a slant where they usually make fun of these sort of things. But they acquired the rights to this show that's on its third season because the content creators wanted to create a bingeable Jesus series. And they say the production values are fantastic and it's actually structured like a real TV show.
But is it an anime?
It is not. Oh,
I
Jesus
feel like-
anime.
Consider me uninterested.
There's definitely Jesus anime out there
Do you
somewhere.
know what
100%.
that show is called? Because I feel like your parents watched that
Is it
show.
is
I
it
can
The
look it up right
Chosen?
now.
The Chosen?
Yeah, it is The Chosen.
Nice.
Yeah.
They love that show.
Yeah, somebody referred to it as like Yellowstone for Jesus, essentially.
Yeah, I think your parents actually recommended that show to us.
Yeah. And we were like, thank you.
No, thank you.
So, like, being raised in Catholic school, I have seen basically every iteration of the Jesus story, and some of them are very good and very well done.
I mean, there's at least 4 of them.
Yeah, at least 4.
I hope that joke gets, really appreciated.
It took me a sec. Yeah, but
good
there's a
Lord.
lot of good ones. Like Jesus of Nazareth is a particularly good one. Jesus Christ Superstar will always live in my heart because that was my favorite musical in a time where I could only listen to musicals, even though it's not even technically considered a musical. But
Isn't Jesus Christ Superstar a musical?
so they consider it to be like a conceptual rock opera as opposed to because it was
That, my friend, is a musical.
well. I agree.
You know what else is a conceptual rock opera? Fucking
The Bible?
Repo.
Repo, the
Yeah.
generic rock opera.
Did you say the Bible?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I mean,
but
it
hold
could
on a
be.
second. Are we on to something?
Bible the musical.
You're on to Bobby something. No. You're on to something, Bobby. You're on to...
Can you imagine the scene where David presents 100 foreskins to marry King Saul's daughter? I brought you 100 dicks today, at least little pieces from the tip. Hooray!
Okay, I think you should write this musical.
Bible the musical by Hal Kramer. Even if we get protested, we're going to make a lot of money. Hey,
yeah.
I can pay my mortgage and my credit score will go back up.
Hey,
Heyo.
let's go. We love that.
Yeah, the going back to something Ryan had said though, about Jesus' name was more closely historically to Joshua. When I was in Catholic school, they taught us without a lot of evidence that the story of Jesus was 100% historically provable. And Penn and Teller did an interesting episode on the Bible when I used to watch their show about how that wasn't necessarily true. And so for years I went down a rabbit hole of what you can actually prove historically from the Bible, and there's only one person in the entire story of Jesus that there's any concrete, literally concrete, because his name is etched in stone, record of. Can you guess who it is?
John. I would have thought so
So we're
because he was a
talking about-
prisoner of Rome.
Yeah.
So are we just talking about like
John,
Jesus's story
yeah,
or the
Jesus,
entire Bible?
So John
Okay.
might be one of them because like Saul/Paul is also recognizable, but there's no like.
What about, is it Pontius Pilate?
It is Pontius Pilate.
Really?
And there's
Let's go!
Yeah, there's only
Bible trivia.
there's only one record of Pontius Pilate, and he exists like written into a monument in Rome, talking about how he was the governor of Galilee at that time.
I'm so proud of myself. I'm not gonna lie. It makes a lot of sense for him to be the only one that there's like recorded evidence for.
But you see, that was what they taught us in Catholic school that made 100% sense, was they were like, because like Jesus was born in the year of a census, that they had a record of his life, and the Romans kept good record. And sort of like what Ryan said about John, I would bet you John exists in Roman whatever too, because
Lore.
like
It's in the lore.
It's in the Lord.
because of Paul spreading Christianity through the Pax Romana, like a lot of these events were basically described decades after they happened. I think that's why John probably is somebody who does exist, like in Roman everything, just like as an accessory after the fact, kind of.
Yeah. I'm just wondering like how many people were named John in Rome at the time.
Do you think John, that was actually his real name, or was it anglicized?
See, that's the thing is
Oh,
like...
totally anglicized.
Yeah, I mean, almost everything.
It was probably Juan.
Juan. I can't tell you if that's more or less accurate. I just don't know.
You know what the funny thing is? I said that not even thinking that there is a Spanish variation, Juan. I was just like, oh, what's a drawn out version of John? Juan.
Well, it is, Latin. So,
Yeah.
What, Juan?
yeah, Latino.
Okay, that's not the
That's
same.
a little different.
Ryan.
But I mean, it is technically Latin because we're all derived from Romance languages.
Good
So-
Lord.
Well,
everyone.
English.
That's what we're talking about,
English
the
is a
good Lord.
Germanic language with French Romantic influence because of William the Conqueror.
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever heard of William the Conqueror?
Oh, I will talk about William the Conqueror any day. Actually,
We have found like the one niche topic that both of you.
Oh, just the one?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think out of all of them, William the Conqueror has to be my favorite, like, joint love of the two of you.
The side plot.
he was sort of the answer to a Jeopardy question I saw like a few weeks ago because they were talking about, I can't even remember what the question was, but the Battle of Hastings was the answer to it. And that was my guess. And like everybody I love it when I answer a Jeopardy question and everybody gets it wrong. And I think that was
Right?
one of them. I'm like, Battle of Hastings. It's where the Bayou Tapestry ends.
I was trying to watch Jeopardy, so fuck you, Paramount Plus, because I used to be able to watch it live on Paramount Plus, and
Yeah.
I was looking for it recently, and I couldn't find it anymore. So
The
figure it out.
anti-sponsorship.
Figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, oh no, you can't. You can only watch the primetime specials on Hulu because I had to watch the Masters tournament on there.
That's the only thing I miss about cable. Everything else can go fuck itself.
Yeah, actually, I was having a talk with this with one of my coworkers yesterday because she's a bit of an older woman. Like, I mean, not older. She's like early 50s, but she's finally cutting cable, but she has to wait until December because of the cancellation fee on her contract. And I casually was like, okay, so how much are you paying in cable a month? And she's like, oh, it's like $270.
Jesus Christ.
And this conversation came up because she had cut Hulu because she couldn't afford to pay. So she pays for a ton of streaming services and she's had this cable bill.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
Yeah, get rid of cable.
Yeah.
I am also fuck you, Netflix. I don't know.
Oh, did you get flixed?
I will be here soon. They wanted me to verify my Wi-Fi, and I was like, no thanks.
Yeah, screw Netflix for wanting a more sustainable business model.
Oh my God, they have the most sustainable business model. It doesn't even fucking matter that we're sharing passwords and things like that.
This is an interesting topic of conversation because Ryan is kind of right, and like in a couple of ways. It is really irritating, and you're talking to somebody too who I share my Netflix password with my parents. So if anything, they're going to get Netflixed. But we live so close to each other, I haven't gotten any notifications yet. And I wonder if maybe that's close enough for Netflix, like living less than half a mile away from each other.
Well, my account holder lives in Arizona. So
Oh, yeah, you're fucked.
I'm so fucked.
And it's both in America.
Yeah, but these streaming, have you been paying attention to all the economics behind these streaming services and what a shit show that has been the last 6 months?
Not really.
Because they've been spending, like, especially since Netflix eventually, like, lost all of the catalogs of entertainment to, like, Disney Plus, Apple TV, and Paramount, like, as they reclaimed their own IP. They've been funneling money just nonstop into these projects. And that's the thing, is, like, they keep spending significantly more money than... I saw Ryan hit the cough button.
Yeah, that was so that when Shannon puts the coffee down,
It doesn't mute her microphone.
yeah, she muted her microphone and I muted it anyway.
But yeah, they've been bleeding money, which is also like one of the reasons HBO Max has been, well, I guess it's just Max now, stupid, but
Yeah, this is like the 4th time they've rebranded.
well, they found this like weird loophole that because they merged with Discovery Plus, they had this one-time only ability that if they just nuked a movie or TV show from their network and didn't offer it anymore, they could claim basically the entire production cost as a tax write-off. Oh. So that's why they've been just nuking completed projects from their library. And now Disney is doing it too. Like the Willow TV series, which hasn't even been on the service for a year, is getting the boot in less than a month.
Oh man, I was waiting to watch that.
Oh my God, watch it today.
God damn it.
And like, just to say, like, these things are not going to go away into a black hole of streaming forever. What's going to happen is, like, they get sold off eventually to other streaming platforms, or you have to buy them off of Amazon, basically.
Wow.
But if you wanted to watch Willow for just your subscription cost, that's what you should do now.
Good Lord.
Ryan, do you have anything you want to add to my rant about
Yeah,
that?
Band of Brothers is back on HBO. That's pretty exciting. My family loves that series.
I still have the DVDs from like when the DVDs
So
cost
does his family.
$110.
Yeah. Well, and I've never seen it from beginning to end, to be fair. And I asked Shannon, but she doesn't like war movies.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't like Band of Brothers, though.
I did watch 1917, and I enjoyed it.
Very good film.
I have not seen that, but I really want to, because I've heard that it was designated or designed to look like a single shot, the whole movie.
Yes. It
was really
good.
well done.
My late grandfather was he served in World War II. Mm-hmm. Million incredible stories this guy had.
Yeah.
But he described Band of Brothers as the most accurate depiction of soldiers in World War II.
You know, it's funny because the reason we had the $120 DVD set was because my grandfather, my mom's father, also served in World War II, and we were just looking for, because he and my grandmother lived with us the last, I want to say 5 and 8 years of their respective lives, and so a lot of like, they didn't have a ton of money, but like whatever money they had that was coming in, my parents were like, we should get them things that'll entertain them. And he absolutely loved Band of Brothers for the exact same reason. He said, like, interesting enough, Saving Private Ryan brought back some PTSD for him.
I'd imagine so.
But he said Band of Brothers was a much slower burn, so it wasn't something that like triggered him in any way, and it just sort of made him remember. Interesting, I don't know if your grandfather was like this, but my grandfather, for the most part, just remembered like all of the shenanigans he got into in the war.
Yes.
Which I think is also a coping mechanism, because
For sure.
I'll always remember this, because like my sister's Fordham graduation was like a super rainy day, and like all of us were just trying to get like shelter, and so I took my grandfather into a building where we could just like wait out the rain for a while, and he was talking about the war strangely that day, and he was like,
as you do.
Yeah, well, he was kind of like, yeah, I probably killed a ton of people, I shot guns, I didn't see their bodies fall, but I probably killed a lot of people. And I was, on one level, I was kind of like, this is an odd time to be saying this, but also was touched that he was sharing this with me. So.
Yeah. My grandpa was in like a second wave of the invasion of Europe. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what all did he tell me? He carried a BAR, Browning automatic rifle, which I held once and is incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
And he was a small guy back then, and they did that on purpose. He was part of the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh my God, that was one of the biggest ones.
Yes,
out there.
That's what I've heard of, yeah.
Insert bold joke here.
But pretty much the biggest, one of the more influential stories he had was that he was in an open field he was told to just run across.
Oh, Lord.
And all of a sudden, they just hear like thumping, like loud thumping, and then explosions. So they were told to hit dirt and just stay there while they got shelled. And all of a sudden he hears a thump, a really close thump, like really close. And he looks to his side and there's just a dud shell right next to him.
Oh my God.
Like he could have touched it if, he wanted to risk that, but obviously didn't. And he was like, yeah, I accepted the Lord at that moment.
Now, here's another weird question about this. Like, before your grandfather went to the war, would you have been born if he had not come back?
Yes, he was my step-grandfather.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. See, my parents always phrased these things, because my grandfather also had a couple of very near misses. Like, there was one of the spookiest things about him was we still have this photo album to this day, because it was in his things, and he had all these, like, he had a camera and took tons of pictures when he was in Italy, because Italy was he was in the ski troops, by the way, which was absolutely insane. They just gave them skis and machine guns and told them to get on the hill.
Nice.
Yep.
A lot of, like, strangely enough, he would pencil out X's over the faces of people who were killed. So it's a very spooky book because you're looking through everybody's dead now anyway, but like as a child of that time, like I was looking through a book of ghosts, like young men who'd been killed in the war.
Wow.
And the reason that there's so many X's over all of his friends' pictures is that, like, I think he had like mail duty or something. It was like something odd that kept him off the field for that particular day, and his unit was ambushed, and everyone but one or two people were killed.
Holy shit.
And so my parents are always phrasing that as like, yep, that's if your grandfather hadn't been doing that, you wouldn't have been born.
Huh. I mean, it is crazy to think about little things like that. If XYZ hadn't occurred, I think about that kind of stuff all the time. My great-grandfather fought in World War II. He liberated concentration camps in Poland.
Oh, my God. That
Yeah.
must have been a thing.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, so there was before he died, this was around the time, and I know that it's still an issue today, but for some reason there was a lot in the news at the time about people denying the Holocaust and things like that.
That's why Eisenhower insisted on touring Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Was so that he could firsthand tell people as an authority figure, yes, this happened.
Yeah. Well, and my great-grandfather, that was the only time I ever saw him get upset, is if he heard about people denying the Holocaust, because he had been to the concentration camps and liberated them. So, like, when Eisenhower toured it, you think, it wasn't, like, inaction. You know what I'm saying? So, like, but when my great-grandfather was there, it was, like, seeing the people firsthand and, like, just the awfulness of it. And so my great-grandfather didn't talk about the war a whole bunch at all.
Same with mine. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, one or the other. You either kind of have kind of you remember the shenanigans and the stuff that wasn't so heavy, or you don't talk about it at all.
Yeah, that was my grandpa's personality, I dare say.
Yeah.
That he was a veteran.
Well, and so my great-grandfather also had this story, and so the details I'm a little shaky on, but the long and short of it is that at the time he was in Paris, or he was in France on the way to Poland, and his wife, my nanny, was in England.
Oh, okay.
And it ended up that she was pregnant with their child, and he got word that the child had been stillborn.
Was that true? Or
yeah,
okay,
yeah. And so he asked for leave to go to England to bury his child, and it wasn't approved.
Yeah.
And he got frustrated because somebody else had leave approved to go get married, and they got so it was a whole thing. So I don't know of the validity of this story, but it's an old family kind of legend. And it's on my dad's side, so it's a little bit more like credible than other things. So the story is that he went to his commanding officer and he said, I'm going to go bury my child. And they gave him a set amount of time, and they were like, if you're not back, you're going to be considered AWOL. So he hitchhiked across France into England to go bury his child, and he didn't make it back on time, and he got court-martialed.
Oh my God.
And they asked him, like, would you do it again? And he was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it's a cool little story. Like I said, I don't know.
They're like, You got me there.
Yeah, they were like, well, I guess you're a man of substance, I suppose. I don't know.
And we're really low on troops.
That sounds like a movie, like hitchhiking across the back half of Europe.
Next Vid Jam idea.
Yeah, we have to do our fantasy one at some point.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. This last one was sort of hastily put together, so we didn't have time to plan the fantasy stuff. But
well, I'd love for that, because aren't there like projects you get more time on?
It's just there's this collaborative one that we are still finishing. Like, everybody shot and edited their movies, but we're finishing like the nitty gritty, which is why I was late today, because I was getting the drive from Sam Melville to color correct it over the next couple of weeks. We couldn't have done it for that one because one of the stipulations for the collaborative was it had to take place in the real world, just so that like you could actually like connect somebody else's movie to your movie. I think the closest that came is Ben Chadwell plays the Grim Reaper in one of the segments. Actually, he has a cameo in our segment because that was one of our connecting pictures. He kills Ryan Lockman's therapist in her.
Oh
it's implied anyway, but. There's the horror challenge always too. We could do like a fantasy horror type of movie.
Well, and I was looking into because my original suggestion when I texted you was let's do a high fantasy film.
Yeah,
and I had to look into it because high fantasy,
it has a lot of lore.
It's just a bunch of it's a buzzword basically. I looked up the difference between high and low fantasy. Nobody actually knows.
It's kind of like what they talked about with pornography on the Supreme Court. Like, I could tell you what's high and low fantasy. Like, I consider Willow to be low fantasy, but that apparently has. There are.
No, I agree with that. Actually, and that's a really good comparison. I need to make you watch Willow,
because Willow does have a lot of lore to it, but it like. I don't know, and the stakes do feel high. It's more like tonally, like
I would say with Willow, it's more of a contained story.
Yeah.
It doesn't it has lore, but it's not like Lord of the Rings where it's like
thousands of years of
yeah.
So the important distinction to make is that there's a different spectrum for light and dark fantasy. So it's kind of one of those four-way kind of things.
Yeah, Willow's definitely. It is light fantasy, although, when they got the TV show has a lot more dark fantasy moments to it.
I thought, I don't know, I had a very dark vibe from the movie.
No, I thought it was like silly, sort of Indiana Jonesy. I thought in a lot of situations.
Well, when did you first watch it? How old were you?
Oh, like a child. Like
I was a child too.
Interestingly enough,
I was a child once.
This is going to be a shot in the dark here, but. The Willow video game for the Nintendo.
There's a video game.
It's not just a video game. It is a really, really, really good and really intricate Zelda clone that they put out for just the regular Nintendo. It's like Zelda, except the world is significantly bigger. Like the monsters are better animated. The music is more intricate, and you have like a much more intricate spell and. The only thing is that you can't save. You have to use this convoluted password system. But a lot of the creatures in that game were especially the bosses, were so well rendered and the music was so scary. It actually frightened me to go into like boss battles when I was like a 6-year-old playing that game. So.
I love that we managed to get around to Legend of Zelda. So,
welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Hal and Shannon talk about
It's
Legend of
literally,
Zelda. While I try and interrupt with ASMR bits.
Willow is definitely it's exactly like Zelda. It's just top down. Willow is a little weirdly animated. It looks like he has a beehive haircut because of the way they've put him. They also make him a swordsman, which he was not.
No, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So.
Why?
So yeah, Willow the movie did not scare me at all, and Willow is still like a. I
was terrified of.
Like a Bavmorda, I guess, or
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I hate her. So we were talking about this recently where there are certain like movie characters that I just scared the shit out of me. One of them is Gollum. I used to be fucking terrified of Gollum, and my dad used to have a little statue of him on his desk. And so I would never. It wasn't even like his voice or anything. I just hated the way he looked and just how spindly he was, and how he could just come out of anywhere and bite your ear off.
He's like Jar Jar Binks for me.
Yeah,
Like
well,
he's just I don't like him.
you and I had different experiences with Lord of the Rings, okay?
It's so funny because I just read an article talking about it was like the best special effects or the most milestones for special effects movies in the like 19th or 20th to 21st century. And they mentioned Willow because Willow had like these ridiculous transmutation effects
Yeah.
years before Terminator 2 that cost them tens of millions of dollars. But they also mentioned Gollum specifically because they said that like until Gollum, CG characters had been sort of more Jar Jar Binks, like there was or Yoda, there was like a combination of puppets and like you didn't actually see the actor. But the way that Peter Jackson developed Gollum was that they captured Andy Serkis's facial features. Yeah. So it was less like you were watching a cartoon superimposed on a person who just happened to be wearing a green screen suit, and more like you were watching an actor actually give a performance that was tied to what was being animated. Yeah. And I'm like, and you know what's funny is I remember the morning after the midnight release of Two Towers, some of my friends who had gone to it came into school the next morning, and one of them was like, yeah, Gollum was great. I thought they were going to totally Jar Jar Binks him, but no, they made him very good. And he used exactly those words, which made me
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that we all have that as a standard for terrible CGI.
Great new video game came out called Gollum.
Oh my god, I forgot about this. Yeah, apparently it's a disaster.
Yeah,
It is.
that was a joke. It's really bad.
I totally this is how much this game is supposed to be bad, is that I saw that and I was like, oh, they made a Gollum game. That could be interesting. And then
No.
I belong-
Why would anyone sorry. Who looked at Gollum and was like, this guy's a main character? Like, this guy's a hero.
You know what he needs? You know what the world
he
needs?
needs a standalone video game.
Someone's least favorite character made it. That's like if they made Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, if they made a show all about him.
Yeah. I heard a lot of cracks about that because Young Rock just got canceled, and everybody was like, oh, I guess we're not going to get that Young Rock and Young Sheldon crossover episode that we were talking about.
That's fine.
On a side note, I used to like that show until I realized that Sheldon was supposed to be a likable character.
Was he?
Yes, he is supposed to be a likable character.
See, with Big Bang Theory, I've seen a few. I know my parents loved it. Like all old people apparently love it.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of episodes like on a plane or occasionally if there was nothing else on TV. I didn't get it at all. It seemed like just the normal sitcom tropes, just super played over nerds. But it was a wildly popular show that went on for like 10 years. So who am I?
I think that I've found this benchmark to be very helpful because a lot of people, we all have very strong opinions about sitcoms and other shows and television. I'm a big fan of removing the laugh track in your head to see if a joke is really funny.
Oh, yeah.
And often I find The Big Bang Theory fails that test.
Have you actually watched the YouTube channel where they remove the laugh track?
I have, yeah. They've done that for Friends, and there's some jokes in Friends where I've noticed I was like, ooh, that doesn't pass the test.
No.
But other jokes in Friends, I mean, a lot of people like bash Friends nowadays because yes, there are problematic parts of it, and the characters aren't. See, this is where I get frustrated. So let me tell you. So
tell us about Friends, Shannon.
A lot of people. So with these sitcom type shows, a lot of people talk about, oh well, this is a problematic character, or they do the wrong thing, or they don't make a right choice, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, but if they weren't that way, like. What I don't understand is, like, what do we expect out of our characters then?
It's more a reflection of the time. Like, actually, interesting enough, as I was driving over here to do the podcast, I was listening to, I forget what show it is, but whatever was on NPR at, like, 8:45 in the morning. And I think it was Aisha Jackson was a star as they were talking about, like, The Little Mermaid and black cinema in general. And she was saying that, like, at this point, she doesn't like the way the word problematic is used anymore because she says the buzziness of it has underplayed, like, what people are trying to talk about. Mm-hmm. Like, she prefers using the term, this doesn't age well, which I kind of agree. Like, problematic has sort of become, like, woke now. It's like it's been co-opted by bad actors, and now it just means something like for me, the old definition of problematic was like, hey, let's reanalyze this and talk about like how far we've come.
Yeah.
That this isn't something we want to joke about anymore. And now problematic has sort of been reduced to, yeah, I don't like this. In my opinion, like. This is sounding old man yells at cloudy to me as I'm saying it out my mouth, but that's not the way I intended this conversation to go.
No, I understand that. My thing is that I think we put a lot of pressure on our characters in any show or television or anything like that. We expect them to be better than us, I guess.
One-dimensional?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, like, for a character like, let's take Joey from Friends, you know, we see a character, or even Barney from How I Met Your Mother. We see a character that...
So like the same character.
Yes, so like the same character. Well,
is Joey as bad as Barney?
No, he is not
Okay.
as bad. I'm going to call you out on that. That's Joey is definitely better than Barney. But we
'Cause
also have to assume that Barney is being portrayed by an unreliable narrator. So that's the other key to that.
Yeah,
That's
because
fair.
Barney, as he's portrayed there, is actually a big scumbag, but it's played
Yeah.
for laughs. But I like the unreliable narrator part of that because it's not explicitly stated, but it also, like, aside from the fact that Barney is a scumbag, what does it say to you, like, the other people, as people, that they would want to hang around with a scumbag like that? Because, like, you know, you're known by the company you keep, and if you're constantly with somebody who's, you know, manipulating women just to have sex and then dump them through elaborate schemes and pranks, like, what does that say about you that you need somebody like that around?
Well, so my whole point is that we're taking a look at a character, you know, who doesn't do the right thing 100% of the time. And we're saying, oh, that's something that shouldn't be portrayed on television or should be portrayed differently on television. And I disagree. I think that it's really important to explore different kinds of characters because just like all of us, we're different kinds of people.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't expect to watch a show or a movie where everyone acts right all the time, and be, first of all, entertained by that, and second of all, you know, we'll kind of be disillusioned as to what reality is, and the reality is that no one person is 100% likable or 100% moral all of the time. So I think that there's value in portraying the characters that we don't like or that or do things that we don't like.
See, I think that would be an interesting angle to follow with, like, I'm specifically thinking about Barney Stinson as we're talking about all this. Because I would, like, while you were talking, I was thinking, like, Barney doesn't usually get a ton of blowback from his friends over, like, his exploits. And one of the only ones I can think of is, like, when the episode where Barney is proudly proclaiming he's about to sleep with his 250th woman. And everybody is like, gross. Like, what kind of a person are you to have, like, slept with that many people, especially one night stand? But, like, what you were talking about could be funny and could be more interesting, like, exploring the fact that, like, this is not correct behavior. And we don't always do the right thing. But, like, I think part of the problem with Joey and these sitcoms is that it's played for laughs in a, oh, boys will be boys kind of way, which show, like, I don't know, gives the message to some impressionable young men that this is acceptable behavior. Not just acceptable, but, like, what you want to aspire to be.
I don't know. I'm conflicted about it because, you know, like you said, is it better to show these characters the way that they are, or showing, and without filtration, without, you know, kind of these friends or other characters holding them accountable? Because, you know, like you're saying, you know, if you have a show that's, or where there's a character that sleeps with 250 women and nobody says anything about it, on one hand, you know, that can have a couple of different layers of saying, oh, well, this is something that we know is incorrect, but, you know, this person's not being held accountable. But on the other hand, if we had another character that held that person accountable, you know, then we're placing a judgment on that character. I'm wondering if we, you know, is there benefit in kind of not filtering that behavior from a character?
I think it's more realistic, like, because as you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, what would I do if I had these people in real life? And the answer is that I've had them, and I just eventually phase them out because their behavior does not jive with who. Like, a really good example is after we finished the last VidJam, actually, somebody who I haven't shot a movie with in like 10 years, older guy, this will shock you. I don't really want to associate with him for a couple of reasons. I've unfollowed him on Facebook because all he does is post like Hunter Biden laptop garbage, for instance. So like already he's not kind of the person I want to associate with. But also like the last movie we shot with him, you know how these movie shoots go. Things never go right. Things are always just a little bit off. And like he was just a huge grump with us, like as we were trying to figure out certain things. And his vibe on set was so bad. We actually were worried that he might not show up the next day to finish his scenes. I'm like, what were we going to do if this person didn't show up? So like, again, if you have bad behavior with friends of yours on certain things, I think usually you kind of just phase them out. Kind of like, to go back to How I Met Your Mother, like one of my favorite episodes is the Blauman episode towards the end of the series. And Ted says something like, it is remarkably easy to never see somebody again.
Yeah.
Because just like as you get older, the people you want to keep in your life, you make an active way to keep around. And like casual acquaintances, you just don't have the time, energy, or really desire to hang around with. And so if somebody gives you an active reason to not want to be around them, like if Barney's bad behavior was starting to weigh on his friends, it's remarkably easy just to phase that person out of your life.
Ryan knows a lot about that.
Yes.
Have you had to phase people out of your life like that?
Oh, yes. Both in the last couple of months and very recently.
Oh. Do you want to talk at all about that, or is this getting too personal?
No, I don't mind. I need Shannon's permission because she's worried that this person will crash our wedding.
Wait.
Oh, no.
What? Crash our wedding.
Yeah, in our friend group.
Oh, well,
Or
we
former
haven't
friend.
completely talked about all of that yet.
You know, we have, but you're just... We can talk further.
This is a Ryan and Shannon conversation that we
Yes.
will have later.
Should we cut off the microphone? I'm going to leave them on.
No, I mean, I agree. I think it's very easy. And I think, you know, when you get older and you start to realize that it really is just a matter of telling people how you feel. Because, you know, Ryan has expressed to me before that he doesn't love the idea of ghosting.
Yeah.
I've done it plenty of times for various reasons, but a lot of the times, you know, as a woman, usually because I was afraid for my safety or because it wasn't like so many times.
Some guy hit you up in your DMs and was like, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like one time there was this guy that I had as a friend on Snap, and we never even met in person. We had matched on Tinder, but nothing came of it. And then he like messaged me like 2 years later to try and pull me into like a pyramid scheme. I ghosted him. I didn't.
I think you've mentioned this guy on the podcast
yeah.
before.
Was that...
Let me tell you about Herbalife.
Was that the LinkedIn guy?
No, that was a different guy.
Oh, different guy.
See, this is the life of a woman, okay? But that's what I'm saying is like that's usually the reason why I ghost people. But I mean, when it comes to like people you've known for a while, I think, you know, a conversation is usually warranted. I was thinking more of like how you handled the Nate situation, if you want to.
Yeah.
Have we talked about that before?
I think we did.
Tell me about Nate.
So, Nate, piece of garbage.
Okay.
Bad friend, worst drug dealer.
Oh.
Somehow. And so at one point, he went to jail.
Yeah.
And ran from the cops. So
That always ends well.
So I was already considering cutting him off. And that was kind of the nail in the coffin, as you might expect. And so his mother passed away. She was battling cancer for a long time. And so his girlfriend, or fiance rather, but you know, bailed him out of jail, and so that he could grieve. And so he hits me up and is like, "Hey, I got a birthday party coming up." And I'm like, "How are you out of jail?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, this happened." And I'm like, "Oh, I see." And he was like, "Yeah, man, you coming to my birthday party?" And I basically friend broke up with him.
Yeah.
I was like, "Listen, I don't think it's healthy for us to be friends. And I'm not going to hang out with you anymore."
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I think those kinds of conversations are important when it's, you know, like I said, you know, sometimes ghosting is the right way to go, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
But
it depends on the maturity level of the person your friend breaking up with.
Exactly.
And if they're going to, like, I have read a couple of times, like, I think ghosting is like people will default to ghosting just not to have difficult conversations. But also, if you feel the person cannot take the difficult conversation, that is a valid option.
And that is why I didn't break up with my mom. I ghosted my mom. That's what I did.
But you drew you back in.
I did it twice, though, because I left her by herself at a Sheetz and left while she was in the bathroom.
At least
Yeah.
she won't starve or be lacking alcohol at the Sheets.
Exactly.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was.
You didn't think so at the time. You were.
No, I felt pretty bad about it at the time. But,
But looking back, you know, we're all smiles and laughs
You
about
could have
it.
left her at a Turkey Hill where they don't have MTO.
Oh,
So
that's true. That's true. Well, I guess I'm not the worst daughter in the world then.
Yeah, I'd say next time, but hopefully there is no next time.
Yeah.
I have friends that I haven't like necessarily ghosted, but just like way phased out of my life, and mostly because like we just don't like I don't know. When I came back from California, I was into like building like, hey, I want to just make friends, I want to do arty things, and I want to like have a good community of people, which took I'd say like 4 or 5 years to finally like find my groove there. And just like all of my friends who had been my friends forever, which were all high school friends too, they just didn't want to do anything. They just kind of were content hanging out in my one friend's basement and just shooting the shit all the time. And so it wasn't like I ghosted them. Like I still invited them to things for years afterwards that they usually wouldn't come to. But it just sort of eventually got to a point where I was like, yeah, you know, our interests and our like what we want in life do not line up anymore. You know, see ya.
Yeah, I think that's a very mature conversation to have, like, you know, just saying to someone that, you know, I don't think that we have the same priorities in life and I would like to go our separate ways.
That's kind of what the, I don't know, like, have either of you ever watched the HBO fantastic series Girls?
No.
Oh my God, Girls is such, like, this was a show that I never thought I would enjoy. Bless you, Shannon.
Thank you.
But, what are you doing?
I was pointing at the cough button.
But it's not a sneeze button, Ryan.
Yeah, what the hell, Ryan?
Ah, fuck.
But yeah, so Girls is like, it got a lot of attention when it was on the air because Lena Dunham was a ridiculous person. And like being a slightly overweight girl, she usually was very naked on the show, which angered a lot of incels for whatever reason. Because they want their naked women to be very good looking, I guess. So it got attention for a lot of the wrong reasons. But it is a really weirdly fantastic show about 4 people who really shouldn't have been friends, but just sort of were put together in college, essentially. And then just stayed with each other because it was easier to keep your old friends than just make new ones. And the second to last episode deals with them friend breaking up, essentially. Because one of them like has, you know, grown up, she's engaged, she is having a much more posh life now and a much more adult life. And she has this conversation with all of them where it's exactly that. It's like, you know, we haven't really grown. We can't spend 5 minutes together without ripping each other's throats out. I think we should just call it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's okay too, you know, and I feel like a lot of people fall into, that's the thing, when you're around someone, whether it's a friend or a partner or a family member, you know, time has a lot to do with that and circumstance as well. And I think if more of us were comfortable having that kind of conversation, I think we'd be a lot happier. And just recognizing that sometimes things aren't right for you or the other person. And so that's why kind of like a lot of people when we talk about like breakups or things like that, like I have a friend who recently got divorced and she was with her husband for 20 years or so. And it just got to the point where they were just like, we're not really good husband and wife, but we're like best friends and we want to keep being best friends. But I think, you know, it's time to, you know, explore other romantic partners. And so they split up, but they still like see each other every week. They go out to dinner, you know, like they are literally best friends, but they just, you know, marriage wasn't right for them. But I think
so they needed counseling.
What? I'm sorry?
So they needed marriage counseling.
Well, but they weren't like romantic, like they didn't want to be romantic with each other anymore.
So they needed marriage counseling.
I think we disagree on this.
This is an interesting thing because, like, yes, marriage counseling could have helped at that point, but also, like, if you've mutually decided that, like, you don't want to be romantic with each other, you know, you can't force somebody. What's the phrase? It's something like, you can't force somebody to love Jesus. They have to want to love Jesus in their own heart. Or
Well-
you can't force somebody to want redemption.
And this has been an ongoing conversation for Shannon and I as an engaged couple.
Yeah.
We can go on for a very long time, very deeply, on all the things we've experienced and learned about each other, but in a very summarized way.
But you're also very romantic with each other, too, which is not like... It seems to me... I don't know these people at all, Shannon and Ryan, but it seems to me like maybe the romance angle was never like the biggest angle with them. Maybe they just gelled with each other as friends, enjoyed each other's company. That's the kind of person sometimes you just want to build a life with. And maybe the romantic feelings just were not as great as they imagined them to be.
But they were married for 20 years.
For 20 years, wow.
Yeah.
And it's not like when they began their relationship, they were like, we're not that romantic, but I don't know, we could get married. Maybe that's an unfair assumption.
Depending on how you are in life too, like maybe that's the expectation of your family as well. Sorry, my view is a little bit weirder on that because I just finished watching the Duggar documentary last night.
There's a documentary.
Oh my god, this is too depressing for depression vacation because
I didn't know there was such a thing.
I had to take like breaks where I would just tell my Alexa to play Scotty Doesn't Know to cheer me up from watching this Duggar documentary because they were like the most fucked up family and were involved in like one of the most fucked up like cult type of administration. Like part of the reason they had 19 children is the leader of their like Christian conference told people to produce as many children as possible so they could fight in God's army to bring a Christian nation.
Oh my.
And they actually had like video of them engaging in what was probably pretty poor paramilitary training as well. Like they were supposed to be called the Joshua generation because they were going to bring down the walls of Jericho and take over the country with a new Christian background. And that's why the Duggars had 19 children.
That's a lot of kids.
That's too many kids.
It's way too many kids. And some people have brought up in the documentary too, like, I have some friends, like, for instance, Karen has 6 kids. I have another coworker of mine who we were discussing this documentary yesterday, and he has 8 children. And he was saying, like, and he's a blended family. That's part of the reason he has 8 children. But he was also saying that, like, it is a very big struggle in his life for him and his wife to find the time to spend with each and every one of their kids, which they do. Yeah. And they basically had to make that the focus of their life with 8 children. And even 2 of them out of the house right now, they say it's a struggle. Imagine that with 19. Like, essentially, you're just adding numbers. Like, there's no way that you're registering kids like 8 through 19 as real people.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, too, of like, you can only... isn't there a benchmark of, like, how many people you can form close bonds with?
Oh, that's the Dunbar's number, because a lot of my coworkers who listen to the podcast love Dunbar's number. And it's like the max number was 250 for close human relationships. Ooh, sorry, but it varies from person to person.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say I don't think I have close relationships with 250 people.
It's the reason nobody cares when stormtroopers get shot in Star Wars. Because you're not actually identifying them as people. And this is actually a big movie trick, too, is why they put stormtroopers in masks, is you don't identify them as people if they don't have faces. Mm-hmm. So that's why, like, the Uruk-hai and, like, all of the, like, orcs in Lord of the Rings all have masks or helmets that cover their faces and things like that.
Wow. Rip.
Yeah.
But, anyway... Where are we at? What's the time?
Yeah,
what are we doing?
We have some minutes left. I have a friend breakup story too.
Okay,
going back to that, because this is the other side of the coin. This was a friend that broke up with me for good reasons. Basically, like in my early 20s, really till about I'd say late-ish 20s, like 27, 28. I had a lot of growing pains to go through and had very bad coping skills. Some of which was influenced by my highly conservative, highly irrational upbringing in a lot of ways. And I had some really good friends in college, too, that were like, we were all best friends and like we hung out with each other. And they just found me more amusing in those ways, but liked me in other ways. But they kind of grew up a lot faster than I did. And so there became this divide as like I didn't quite, get into the real world as soon as possible. And it like their wedding was the first year I was in California, and I actually like spent all of my money to fly out to the East Coast for this wedding and got way too drunk and definitely did not ruin the wedding. Like it wasn't that kind of thing, but I had to go to sleep in the first hour of the reception. But then when I came back from California, I was changed person for the most part, and I went to one of their birthdays the first year I was back, and like the damage had kind of already been done, and the woman of the duo like screamed at me over something I didn't deserve particularly, but it was clearly like years of built up resentment, and I haven't seen them since.
Aw.
Yeah, it's one of the one of my best friends still chats with them regularly and sees them because they all live in the same area. And we talk about this a lot too, that because he's like, yeah, I don't understand exactly why she holds on to so many resentments for you over things that were forever done. And I'm kind of like, well, they were serious to her, and I, don't interact with them. So sometimes you just have to break up with, even if that friend is you, sometimes you just have to break up with that friend. So
Yeah.
I'd like to think if I saw them again, which I might at some point in this life, that we'd have a different conversation about a lot of different things. But, all of our lives are pretty good for the most part, so I'm not going to complain.
Well, that's good. Yeah. You got to make room for the people in your life that bring you joy and value.
Yeah.
Well said.
I agree with that. And sometimes, there can be perfectly good people that you just do not align with what you want to do in life anymore, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than spending time, your precious mental and physical energy, on people that just want nothing to do with you.
Right.
Oh, Hal didn't silence his phone.
Rest in peace.
It wasn't me this time. Yes.
Stupid phone. Also, why did it take an hour and 1 minute for anybody to text me while I was in here? Am I not popular enough?
No.
Why did nobody text me, email me, send me a Facebook message, or why did my burb from Finch not say anything to me for a whole hour and 1 minute and 10 seconds?
Wow.
Boo.
All right.
All right, so yeah, we're about that.
Wrapping it up.
Do you have anything you want to talk about
Wrapping it up.
besides the Addams Family?
Ooh. Well, Shannon has a broken foot, so I don't know if she's going to be on stage for that one.
Oh no. Well, can the chorus wear a boot, or can you not? Oh no.
My character is from the French Revolution. But so the idea is I'm going to keep going to rehearsals, going to learn what I can, because I'm a pretty quick learner. So if I'm ready to go in 3 weeks, I can learn all the choreography. But there's a slight chance I might need surgery. So if that's the case, then I won't be able to be on stage. But I will get to sing on backstage.
That's something, at least.
Because I'm one of 2 soprano ones, and they need somebody to hit those high notes. So
I got a mean falsetto. Maybe I'll.
Yeah.
We got plenty.
Called Ryan.
We got plenty of basses, or want to be basses anyway.
God.
I described I was sitting next to a guy during one of the vocal rehearsals, and Shannon was like, "Hey, I heard the guy next to you. He didn't seem to really know what he was." I was like, it was like harmonizing with a lawnmower.
I don't actually know if I'm a bass or a baritone, because we did not do ones and twos in chorus. It was basically just soprano, alto, bass, or tenor, and they made me a bass because I'm definitely not tenor. But I struggled with some of the lower bass parts, so I'm not exactly sure what I am in that batch.
Probably a baritone then.
Yeah, probably baritone.
It is the most common male vocal part. So
I would, yeah.
yeah.
But anyway,
that's pretty much all we have going on.
you're not doing any stand-up shows in the near future? Well, or sit-down shows in your case here?
Nobody's
Nobody's ever made that joke before about somebody who can't actually stand up.
No, we were thinking about going to the open mic last week, but I was still on the crutches and didn't want to hop up the stairs.
You would have had to crawl up the stairs. That's
Yes.
what Shannon's been doing.
Oh man, that stage is not wheelchair accessible.
We forged our own wedding rings.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah, Shannon talked about that last time.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Because
so
she kept it a surprise.
Yeah,
was so- I
but
did
yeah, you
that.
slid down the stairs on your butt.
Yeah. I was determined.
I also did not go to the mic last week, but it was more I've been having a ton of trouble sleeping lately, and I want to blame the fact that the air was literally on fire for the last week.
Fair enough.
Which I think contributed to it, but just have not been sleeping particularly well lately.
Well, what helps me sleep is this cool thing called ASMR. Anyway, guys, it's been fun.
Hold on, Hal needs to plug something.
Oh,
He just is talking
Probably.
for himself. Well, yeah. So again, I'm going to talk a lot about the VidJam screening, which is coming up on June 25th at 5:30 p.m. We do not know who the host is going to be yet, because I offered the hosting duties to somebody who said she needed to get back to me and has not yet gotten back to me.
So this is your reminder to get back to Hal.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah, get back to me. I I guess I could even just say it on here that the person I offered the hosting duties to, which I don't know if she is going to take me up on it. So this was the first VidJam in forever that Lily Compton did not submit a movie for. Oh. And she had the longest streak of anybody because she had done every single one after the first one. So I think that was 22 VidJams in a row because there were 23 at that point. But, you know, at this point, she's no longer a precocious 9-year-old doing movies. She is now a precocious and talented 17-year-old doing movies who also has like real life high school stuff she has to do and her own films that she does in her performing arts high school. But I had this idea to like just ask her if she wanted to host just so she could be part of the one VidJam that she missed in 7 years. But again, has a lot of real life stuff going on. So I don't know if she's actually going to do it. If not, I'll just ask one of the many talented stand-up comedians I know to do something. So,
yeah,
but not Shannon because she can't stand up.
Well, and I'll be in the Outer Banks.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's more important that you can stand up that you're in the Outer Banks.
Oh,
but yeah, that's coming up. The VidJam Collaborative, which is another project that has been near and dear to my anxiety for the last 2 months, is finally screening on July 8th at 8 p.m. and July 9th at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Nice.
At the Midtown Cinema. I'll be at the July 8th screening, but I will hopefully be in Cape May by the time of the screening of the next one. So you get one chance to ask me all the questions about my depressing movie you want to.
All right.
Yeah.
Ryan, anything to plug?
Yeah, I got my YouTube channel. It's a variety YouTube channel at this point. I'd say it's mostly the map drawing ASMR, but I made a cover of Roxanne by Arizona Zervis, but as an orchestral arrangement and in the style of Boris Christoph, which is a 20th century bass singer.
Well, you know, I'm just going to go through your YouTube channel while I'm color correcting at work today.
Go for it. It's I'm sorry in advance.
I think that's the fun thing about YouTube channels is you can just sort of figure out what you want to do. Like there are many similar to stand-up comedy. Whatever you do on YouTube cannot be worse than the bottom 50% of YouTube channels.
There you go.
Yeah. So because there are some bad things out there, but do you do like synthetic orchestrals at all on your?
Yeah, I do MuseScore.
Okay.
It's like Sibelius, but it's open source and doesn't cost $500. It's free. So I spent a whole Saturday just orchestrating this arrangement of Roxanne. I think I'm not going to lie, I think the music came out okay, but then I added my voice and kind of ruined it.
See, I don't listen to these quite as much anymore, but one of the things I absolutely loved on YouTube for years was people doing like different orchestrals of like video game and Final Fantasy music. And it's like the best ones were incredibly impressive. Like, as to like one of my favorite ones who was I think his name was Brian Robinson, still is because he's probably still alive.
I might know him.
You mean like know him from YouTube? Or?
No, like know him. Brian Robinson.
I don't know if he's from, I never checked to see where he was from around here, but he was a multi-instrumentalist who actually like recorded every note from cello, violin, etc., like the entirety of the fretboard for all of these instruments.
What else do you know about him?
He does Final Fantasy music.
Okay.
But he, like...
No, I'm not kidding. I might know him.
That would be very cool. If you do know him, tell him Hal Kramer still listens to his music on his iPod.
I hang out with his brother pretty often. If this is the same person.
So. Does he do a lot of orchestrals?
He's a musical genius.
Wouldn't that be interesting if that was the... because it's Brian Robinson and the Synthetic Orchestra was... what it was, because he did the entirety of the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, like over 3 albums, which is fantastic, and also, strangely enough, copyright free, which is why I use so much. In fact, Shannon, for our intro video for when you hosted VidJam last year, it was all just random music from the Chrono Trigger soundtrack arranged by the Brian Robinson Synthetic Orchestra, because it doesn't get picked up by copyright.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. I might legitimately know him.
We'll chat afterwards.
Yeah. But, maybe do you have like a? Well, you have his YouTube, so you could show me like a picture of him.
Yeah, I guess we'll figure this out afterwards. And tune in next week to find out the exciting conclusion to Do Hal and Ryan have a friend in common?
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
No, I'm not allowed to watch that.
Not Still.
Yeah, but I guess so for Depression Vacation, this has been Hal.
And Shannon.
And Ryan.
Tell us about ASMR more, Ryan. And we'll see you next time. Have a good week, everyone.
I'm sorry.